3,650,000 new people will arrive to the shores of the United States. Do you think that's going to impact you as an entrepreneur? We certainly do. This is Pain Points, where the world meets business. And without my co-host Samson today, we're going to jump into it nonetheless. So today we're talking about immigration, more specifically the migrant crisis that our nation is fully in the midst of. Now, the reason why we're going to talk about it is because as entrepreneurs, it affects you in this manner. If the people who subsequently become the workforce, the talent pool, the candidates, if the people of a nation are changing based on who's here, who's available, who you have to be responsible for, who you have to think about, then your business changes. It's really that simple. There's no need to overthink it as we dive into this today, because the United States government is going to make you and I and our employees pay for that. So let's jump in with a couple articles, and then we have a video from our dear President, Joe Biden. So this first article comes by way of News Nation. So the headline reads, which cities are getting the most migrants bused to them? Again, courtesy of News Nation. This comes by way of Alex Caparriello and Demita Menezes. Pardon me on the names. That's the way it's written out. Last month saw an unprecedented 269,000 migrant encounters. Chicago, Denver, New York City are all cities who are facing the largest influx of migrants and have the highest costs associated with that influx. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker penned a letter to President Biden seeking federal aid. Those are our 3 points here. New data shows which of the U.S. cities away from the southern border are feeling the burden of the crisis as hundreds of migrants arrive via bus each day. U.S. border authorities encountered a record-setting number of migrants crossing the U.S.-Mexico border in September, with 269,000 encounters, more than those reported by the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. As a result, many of these migrants are being transported by bus to cities like Denver, Chicago, and New York City, placing a significant strain on urban centers, their resources, and budgets. Some of us know that already, but think about this. 269,000 people came in just in September. That's not counting, the other 8 months out the year thus far, or the last 2 years. 269,000. That's a record. That means it's increasing gradually, month by month by month, okay? So much so that they are now being bused to subsequent cities. So the question here in the back of your mind needs to be, wherever I am, whether I'm in Idaho, Utah, Denver, New Mexico, if it goes at this rate, how long until people are now being sent to where you are and where you run your business? So continuing on. In Denver, approximately 300 new arrivals arrive daily, resulting in more than 20,000 people finding shelter in the city, with costs exceeding $26 million. Since the spring of 2022, 118,000 migrants have ended up in New York City. Officials have been forced to open 200 shelters and 17 humanitarian relief centers to accommodate them. In Chicago, 25 buses arrive each day, transporting as many as 1,250 migrants daily. Today, there are over 3,000 migrants residing at police stations throughout Chicago. Those numbers are absolutely insane. The situation in Chicago has deteriorated to the point where Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker penned a letter to President Biden requesting assistance and underscoring the gravity of the state's predicament. The federal government's lack of intervention and coordination at the border has created an untenable situation for Illinois. There is an urgent need for comprehensive reform by way of J.B. Pritzker. Illinois has allocated over $300 million for humanitarian aid, with Chicago alone dedicating more than $100 million. Okay, so the thing to note about this is that when we hear numbers and we hear, numbers being thrown around, like $300 million for humanitarian aid, $100 million for this, for reform, or whatever the number is, anytime you are hearing, as an entrepreneur or as someone who is aspiring to be an entrepreneur, anytime you are hearing numbers being thrown around, you have to ask this fundamental question. How is that being funded? How are these programs, these relief efforts, these stations, this reform, how are these things being funded? And the answer is, whether you're looking at it from state or federal level, or even the local level, income tax, sales tax, payroll tax, taxes are what fund these efforts. But who pays the taxes? We do. You, me, us. We pay it. So as an entrepreneur, you have to be thinking, yes, I know we can see the situations and people seeking asylum and all the different things that we have to deal with from an emotional standpoint. But as an entrepreneur or as someone within a business, you have to understand that these decisions you're accountable to. Your money is accountable to. Your work, your effort, your output ultimately makes this possible And therefore, you will be impacted by the continuous having to make a decision to do the next thing and do the next thing. So Chicago's 19th precinct to a shelter, which is to be used as a warehouse. In Texas, 2,000 people were reported seeking asylum daily in El Paso in September, up from 400 per day in August. Think about that. 400 per day to now 2,000 per day in El Paso, which is a border city. Biden has grappled with the record number of migrants crossing illegally since he took office in 2021, and he's facing criticism over the issue as he runs for re-election. No doubt. But I'm going to pivot to the second article in here, and then I want to talk a little bit more with you. So this article comes by way of Mexico's president. The headline reads, Mexico's president says 10,000 migrants a day head to the U.S. border, and he blames U.S. sanctions on Cuba. But note the first part, 10,000 a day head to the U.S. border. That's 3,650,000 migrants heading from one nation, let alone several nations. If you don't think this is going to impact your business, it will. You may not know how, I may not know how, but you can bet if 3 million people are coming to our borders, with a significant portion of them being let in and then shipped throughout the nation, it is going to impact your business. It's up to us to consider the ways, and we're doing that partially here, but it's really up to you and in your community with your fellow business owners, your public officials on the local, state, and of course, federal level. What is going to be the impact? We have to have this discussion. So back to the article. Mexico's president said that 10,000 migrants per day are heading to the U.S. border, and he blamed U.S. economic sanctions on countries like Cuba and Venezuela for the influx. President Andrés Manuel López Obrador said the number of migrants reaching Mexico's northern border with the United States was due to about 6,000 migrants per day crossing into Mexico from Guatemala. He said many of those migrants are traveling on a route through Central America that includes the jungle-clad Darien Gap between Panama and Colombia. López Obrador seemed to join Colombian President Gustavo Petro in blaming the situation on United States sanctions on countries like Venezuela and Cuba, whose citizens make up a large part of the migrant flow within the migrants. Experts say economic mismanagement and political repression are largely to blame for the tide of migrants leaving those countries. The United States has sanctioned both governments over what it considers the suppression of democracy. López Obrador suggested that sanctions are because ideological differences and not to uphold human rights, and said the sanctions and blockades cannot be maintained. Petro's government has been criticized for doing little to stop the industrial-scale smuggling of migrants through Colombia. López Obrador's administration has done little to stop migrants from hopping freight trains toward the U.S. border, until the country's latest railway line complained last month and stopped some trains itself. I'm going to pause in the article and say, note at what's coming by way of these gentlemen in these quotes. They're blaming the U.S., but they're not taking ownership over the impact that their own nations are having. And say it's their fault. Just think about the irony of that for you as an entrepreneur. As an entrepreneur, here's the lesson. Take ownership over the issues you and your people are facing, and those other parties who are impacted by you and your people. You have to take ownership over that. Okay, I'm going to pivot here and just wrap on that point with that article. And I want to jump specifically to something around New York City and then back into Chicago, and then we'll wrap with Joe Biden. Okay, so this next article comes by way of the Associated Press, and it says, New York City mayor wraps up Latin American trip with call for right to work for migrants in the U.S. So as an entrepreneur, before I can even jump into this article, something strikes me that is so ridiculous about many politicians today. 1 minute, they'll be saying, this is going to destroy the city. We don't have the resources, like AKA Mr. Adams here. 1 minute we don't have the resources. 1 minute this is going to destroy the city. 1 minute we're going to, stand on the Israel-Hamas debate and weigh in here and weigh in here. But what strikes me so much is the inconsistencies between these people who are technically being funded by you, the entrepreneur, you, the employee. These people work for us. And here we are allowing such ridiculous inconsistencies. I haven't even got into the article yet, but if it's anything based on if it's as effective as this headline is in terms of conveying that he went there and said that migrants have a right to work in the U.S., we just have to understand that we are in the middle of a bigger crisis. His own words have said, let's put a stop to this. We can't sustain this. And here we are on a bigger stage in a Latin American nation saying, you have a right to work in the US. See, these things don't add up. They don't add up, but I digress. Let me jump into the article. Okay, New York City Mayor Eric Adams capped off a 4-day trip to Latin America on Saturday by calling for a right to work for migrants in the United States. He spoke during a visit to Necoclí, the northern Colombian town where thousands of migrants start their perilous trek. Those 10,000 per day start their perilous trek across the Darien jungle into Panama as they head for the U.S. So he's going to the very place where thousands of people end up trying to come to the U.S. 10,000 people try to come to the U.S. daily. Speaking from a dock where migrants take boats toward the jungle, Adams said countries in the region need to come together to find solutions to the immigration crisis being felt across the Americas as well as in cities in the United States, including New York. He called on the U.S. government to find pathways for migrants and asylum seekers to work legally in the United States. He is quoted by saying, "When you look at Colombia, they have really shown how to absorb individuals into their societies, as one of the most important ways to do it is to allow people to work. Nothing is more humane and nothing is more American than your right to work. And we believe that it is a right we should extend." New York City has struggled to provide emergency accommodation to tens of thousands of migrants who have arrived in the city this year, with Adams and other city leaders calling on the federal government to set up work authorizations for those who are already in the city. A unique ruling dating from the 1980s requires New York to provide shelter to anyone in need. Adams has said that the cost of supporting migrants could climb to $12 billion in the following 3 years, and this week challenged a statute that obliges the city to provide migrants with shelter. The mayor also went to Ecuador and Mexico during his whistle-stop tour, where he visited shelters for migrants and spoke to local legislators. After stopping in Mexico's Puebla state, Adams said his city is at capacity. "Our hearts are endless, but our resources are not." Adams told reporters, "We don't want to put people in congregate shelters. We don't want people to think they will be employed." I thought you're calling for a right to work. In Colombia, Adams said his goal is not to tell migrants what they should do, but to learn about their motives and find solutions to the migrant crisis. Okay, so this is an abdication of responsibility, and I do applaud some of the things he said in here in terms of being willing to say, like, yo, our resources are not endless. But when you are responsible for a group as a representative, an ambassador for a group of people, in this case, the people of New York City, and an extension, the people of the United States, you have a responsibility to say certain things. And so you can't say, like, my goal is not to tell migrants what they should do. Well, actually, it should be one of your goals, because your own state, you just got done saying your resources are not. As an entrepreneur, as a key leader, don't start off by saying, my goal is not to necessarily tell you what to do when things are negatively impacting your organization or business, especially if you're dealing with outside forces, third-party forces. Yeah, that is your responsibility, because if I don't tell you what you should do, you're going to continue negatively impacting my business, my organization, or in this case, my state. So you and you're not going to be canceled for doing so. We're always tiptoeing. As an entrepreneur, don't tiptoe. There's no hard conversations. The mayor described his visit as an eye-opener, saying he was saddened to see dozens of families with children sleeping on the beach in Necoclí in tents while they gather enough money to take boats to the Darien jungle. What I don't want is what I saw on the beach of Colombia to play out in the streets of New York City. We all want to help as many people as possible. We want to uphold our values as a city of immigrants. But to do that, we need to stabilize the situation. Roger that, Eric Adams. Overall, guys, you know, we're examining these articles because the truth is, one, we're all moving so fast that we rarely read these articles. But two, we don't have this kind of discussion. You know, we don't always get to have this kind of discussion as an audience and as a creator here. But what we're trying to do through Pain Points is foster that in your own communities, in your own companies. We have to talk about this, especially as business owners, because we play a part in footing the bill. We're not the only ones footing the bill. The people who work in our businesses and within our community also assist us. We do this together because the United States government does not make its own money. And this is just extremely important. It's very easy as an American citizen, as an American entrepreneur who has enjoyed such incredible blessings, to think that it's as simple as people arriving here and then people being able to stay here, and they will just sort of blend in, do whatever they got to do, you know, sort of being unassuming about this. But the truth is, it does require resources from people who come here without resources to do that. The truth is, those people do bring certain ideologies and beliefs into this nation. And the truth is, as a nation right now, we are struggling to lay hold of our actual national identity. We got a lot of opinions on what that is and what sustains this. Adams is in Latin America having these conversations, but it doesn't line up. We'll look up in 5 years, or at least another 4, if President Biden is elected, and we'll say, what the heck happened? Who did that to us? Why am I paying for this now? Why is the taxes going up? Why is this new stipulation that I have to have this person within my organization? These things will continue to change and snowball. And so we have a responsibility as business owners to care about this stuff and to ask the questions, well, even with my limited understanding, how could this play out in impacting me just from what I know? In this case, as an entrepreneur, business owner, you are responsible for people. So if there's more people you're going to be responsible for. All right, I'm going to close out with this video here as we wrap this up from President Biden. It's just a clip from the 60-minute interview that released this weekend. You can watch the full clip. But what I want you to analyze is look at the commander-in-chief of our nation and just hear the words he said and see if they're cringeworthy or not.
Are the wars in Israel and Ukraine more than the United States can take on at the same time?
We're the United States of America, for God's sake. The most powerful nation in the history, not in the world, in the history of the world. The history of the world. We can take care of both of these and still maintain our overall international defense.
Russia's unprovoked invasion occupies nearly 20% of Ukraine. Hundreds of thousands have been killed or wounded. In an interview last month, President Volodymyr Zelensky told us he could lose without U.S. aid.
Again, that's taken out of the full 15-minute interview. But think about this. Of course, we can deal with these things abroad, but yet I got 10,000 people daily trying to come into my borders, and I refuse to deal with this. But I'm going to say I have enough capability, enough strength, and assume the position of being the policeman that I can do that. I can be the CEO of that business out there, worrying about my competition, this, that, and the third, and my allies and so forth, but I'm not taking care of my own people. Don't be that kind of entrepreneur, my friends. That is not an entrepreneur. That is not a CEO. That is not a founder. That is not a chief marketing anything, a chief anything, a C-suite anything. Director, as a business leader, as a business owner, that is not leadership. Again, I know it's taken out of the context. But your response of, we are capable of doing any and everything, it's not true. You can't even close up our own borders. So with that said, my friends, you matter as entrepreneurs. You matter to this nation that we have, this republic that we have. It is your creativity, your service, your problem solving, but also your courage and humility to step outside of just the world of your business and look at the world as a whole. That's why we do Pain Points. It is your willingness to do that that is going to make all the difference in the days ahead. Take care.